All right. Thank you so much for joining us at this session. Since I know many of you, for everyone, this is our last day of reInvent. Thank you for joining us here. I'm going to get us started on time so that we can make sure we get you all to flights afterwards. So you are here for a 201 session on Alexa. I'm Rebecca Miller. I'm head of product for Alexa Smart Properties, which is the product that we'll be talking about today. Honestly, I love this product, and I'm so excited to get to show you what our developers have built with it and how they've helped their customers and their staff using this. So we're going to be talking about 5 different things today. First is why voice matters. Why, as a technology, this is something that customers have reacted very well to, and we're seeing growing numbers of end customers and employees starting to see how voice can benefit them in what they tend to do. Second is, what is Alexa Smart Properties? What is this product? How is it related to but different from the consumer voice assistant that you may have or your friends may have in your living room? Third is how this helps your customers and employees. Fourth is how to use it. And then 5, I'm going to give you a sneak preview into what's coming next, so you can get a little taste into our roadmap and how we think that we're going to help you invent for your end customers afterwards. So first is why voice, why this technology is something that customers have been long on, and why it's something we're long on. And the first thing is that the majority of customers in the US, the majority of adults, regularly use a voice assistant on a regular basis. And that number is only growing. Every single month, there are 50 billion searches on voice. And there are over tens of millions of Alexa-enabled devices that are sold, and that's just Alexa. And this number continues to grow. And at Amazon, we love this technology because it's magical. When we think about products and we think about technologies, we're working backwards from how do we help humans live more efficiently and effectively. And voice is such an accessible technology, regardless of how technologically savvy somebody is. It's a really simple interface to interact with things around you to control your environment with things like smart home devices, but it's also a really easy interface for somebody that has no idea how a certain technology works to be able to get the information that they need instantaneously. And that's why we love to continue to invest in this technology, because we think that it's only going to keep growing. By the end of this year, we expect that there's going to be over 1.8 billion people who have used a voice assistant or a type of a smart speaker. And that's what we love about it is customers are responding to it. That number of customers continues to grow over time. And so customers are responding to this, but what we've seen as customers and individual consumers have been responding is that there's applications for this inside of enterprises. And so there's typically 3 things that we've heard from customers. We've gotten inbound requests from them saying, I love what's happening inside of living rooms. How can I use this for my business, for my end customers that I serve, for my employees that I serve, and how can this help my overall business? And there's 3 general things that all of our customers have said as we've been building out technologies to help them. The first is that it improves their end customer experiences. Guests is one, but we'll cover patients today, we'll cover residents today, we'll cover employees today, of how this just improves their overall experience and helps them spend more time doing what you would like them to do. So a guest can spend more time, for example, exploring amenities that somebody has to offer. The second is that lends itself to an incremental return. So if a guest is able to find that cool pool or those premium golf lessons, that is helpful for the overall business's bottom line. And the third thing is that employees are able to do what they signed up to do. They're able to have more fun doing it. They're able to spend more time caretaking for the senior citizen that they decided that they were going to sign up to actually take care of. And that's why we decided several years ago to build this technology and this product suite called Alexa Smart Properties. This basically takes the consumer device that was built for your living room and gives you as developers, gives you as solution providers, gives you as industry-leading executives the tools that you need to customize these experiences to take Alexa outside of the living room and put Alexa into all of these different locations where Alexa and voice can add value to your customers and your employees. And so I want to talk about how we've been doing this across a growing number of industries. The first one was hotels. We literally had customers calling us saying, hey, we love, these were business executives inside of hotels. They said, we love this trend that we saw inside of living rooms. And what we've seen historically is that what happens in a living room, customers start to expect this away from home, right? That's the vision of like your best hotel stay is home away from home. You're impressed by the magic that happens inside of the hotel rooms, but you also don't miss those comforts at home. And they said, we want to add voice to our experience so that guests find that magic, but they're also able to understand how to interact with their environment around them, help them find amenities. And we said, let's do it, let's build this. And so we delivered that, and they loved it. And then vacation rentals came to us, and they said, hey, we want to get rid of those in-room binders that explain if you've stayed in an Airbnb or a VRBO, explain the house rules, explain what the Wi-Fi password is. They said, we hate building those. Can you please help us get rid of that? And we said, let's do it. And so we built it. And then senior living communities came to us, and they said that we want to help residents fight loneliness, especially as the pandemic that we're all facing has been ramping up. They said we want to bring that experience of hospitality to our residents to make sure that they feel connected and that they're able to explore everything that we have to offer, but they're able to stay connected to their loved ones as well. And so we built that. And healthcare came to us, and they said we want to make sure that patients are able to interact with their doctors, even if personal protective equipment is really scarce. And so we built that. We built things for residential that we'll cover in just a minute of how to make smart home devices and voice an amenity, as an increasing number of renters are requesting these different devices to just be built into their overall experience. Same thing is true for workspaces. How do we make employees have an accessible experience for all types of information? And how to make sure that they're staying efficient so that they don't have to get distracted among their job. And across all these different things, what it comes back to is these two things. We've seen that businesses want to use voice to delight their end customer. These could be guests, residents, patients, employees, et cetera. But they also want to drive efficiency in return, and they found that voice is able to do that. And so that's what we chose to build Alexa Smart Properties around. Specifically, we provide tools and APIs that offer fleet management. So if you own an Alexa device or a voice assistant at home, you probably bought one or several devices, and you have an app that you're able to control that device. You set up the device, you customize it, you manage it, use it to control the environment of your home. We build that at scale, so you could do that for tens of thousands of devices. And you can set all those up, remotely manage those, customize those experiences to make sure that it's providing a best-in-class experience. But it also comes with some specific tools. So there's the basic Alexa experience that works out of the box. So you can choose a default music station, for example, add a reminder for checkout. You can set timers and alarms. You can add smart home devices across the different rooms if you want to. But we also built some things that we're specifically working backwards from what would a customer need, what would an employee need in these places outside the home. And an example of this is name-free skill invocation. So an Alexa skill, you can think about it as kind of similar to an application on your phone. And this could be something that is able to order room service or order a toothbrush. That's something that I tend to personally actually forget a lot when I travel. So we'll go with that example. Order a toothbrush. And if you just use a consumer device out of the box and you say, Alexa, I need a toothbrush, I forgot one. Alexa's likely going to say, great, there's one on Amazon, and here's the price for it, here's your different options for it. But that's not super helpful if I literally just need a free toothbrush from downstairs. And so we built a technology called name-free skill invocation, where as a developer, you can build a skill that raises its hand to get questions related to the context in which Alexa sits. So for example, you can tell that skill, hey skill, you're in a hotel, and so any questions related to the hotel, I want first dibs on that traffic, because it's the most relevant thing for your end customer, it's the most relevant thing for your staff. And it's also something that helps drive discovery of your information. And so these are the types of experiences that we've built to make sure that this is contextually relevant for your enterprise applications. And as a developer, as you're building for these, that it's something that you aren't building confusing experiences or ones that just get really low traffic. And so as we're talking about these different benefits, I mentioned a couple of them, but over the next couple of minutes, I want to go through specifically how it wow your customers, your end customers, how this improves staff productivity, and how this integrates into your business. But I want to start specifically by showing you what this looks like with the end customer. At Amazon and across most companies, we work backwards from those customers to understand exactly what this would look like. And so I want to show you what this looks like inside of hospitality. And so in hospitality, you actually may have stayed in one of these hotels that have Alexa inside of the rooms. For example, if you stayed at the Wynn locally, you may have experienced this. But inside of hotels, we built experiences that we gave developers the tools to leverage what Alexa's great at. So you walk into a room with your bags, and you don't even have to drop them. You can just say, hey, Alexa, start playing music. It could distract your kids. It could be white noise. It could help you calm down from an airplane. You can say, Alexa, open the blinds as soon as you walk into that room. You can say, hey, Alexa, please remind me to check out at a certain time, or please set a wake-up reminder so that you don't have to call room service for that or the front desk for that. Or you could ask Alexa, hey, get me a reservation for a dinner at the best resort inside of the city that you're in. But we also provide tools for hospitality to do things like this on the screen, which is sending notifications of content proactively to each individual room. And so we give hotels and developers the tools where they're able to push content to every single device that could be helpful. So room service menu, for example, so the guests can just discover that proactively or ask for this. But we also give them tools to push custom information. So for example, if you're a VIP customer and you want to know how many points do you get based on taking X action, or if you want to know that you get a certain VIP reward because of your status in a certain lounge, but only between the hours of X, Y, or Z, or if a hotel needs to remind you to check out because you asked for that earlier and you want a checkout reminder at 10 a.m., they can proactively push this information to a static card that you're able to prioritize to make sure that your customers are discovering what you have available and interacting with that, whether it's free amenities that just improves their overall stay, or whether it's premium amenities that generates incremental return for you and just a better experience for them. Second one I want to look at is senior living. So in senior living, we talked about how residents can enjoy music, they can enjoy what Alexa has to offer in terms of providing different calendar functionalities or finding group activities. But we also heard feedback about from developers and from solution providers and industry leaders saying, we think that Alexa can provide some tools that will specifically add value to residents. And we took that very seriously. So during the COVID pandemic, residents were honestly fighting a lot of isolation. Senior living communities were heavily locked down, and residents said we feel disconnected and we feel really, really lonely. We said, how can we solve that? And so we worked backwards from this in a couple of different ways. One is we released a calling capability that allows residents to be able to call their loved ones instantaneously. So before this, in many senior living facilities, the experience, if you wanted to call your grandson, was that you had to wait for your caregiver to come talk to you. You say, when they come talk to you, I want to call my grandson. The caregiver then has to go and schedule time. They have to call the grandson, schedule time with them, and then bring the resident to a phone or bring the phone to a resident and have that call happen and then undo that whole thing. So there's a lot of friction in a basic call to your loved ones, and it really reduced their ability for a resident to find community in this time. And so what we built was an experience where a resident can have a device in their room and just ask Alexa, hey, call my grandson. And we originally built it with just audio, heard feedback. We actually want audio and video. We want to be able to see our loved ones' faces during this. And so we built that. And now residents are able to just ask Alexa, hey, call my grandson, call my son, call my kids, and Alexa's able to instantly connect them. But we didn't just focus on how do we connect guests or how do we connect residents to their loved ones outside of the community. We also focused on how do we help them engage with people inside the community, their actual neighbors. And we were just talking a minute ago about name-free skill and vocation and about the ability to push notifications to a device. And that's what we've been seeing developers and solution providers and the industry leaders in senior living do, is they push content to their residents to say, hey, book club is on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Do you want to sign up? Just ask Alexa. And they say, hey, your friends are going to X event at a certain time. Do you need transportation for that to make sure that you sign up? And so it's a way of helping residents understand how they can find these opportunities to engage with their friends and spend face time with them to make sure that they're staying engaged. And again, fighting loneliness, using some of the basic tools that we talked about that had applications in hospitality, but also in senior living to make sure that residents are staying engaged. We did something similar inside of the healthcare space. So in healthcare, we were specifically, again, working backwards from how do we use tools to help people get information that they need for sure, but also how do we help them connect with their doctors? So one of the things that a number of healthcare communities were telling us is that they needed an ability to check on their patients. So especially during COVID, you may remember that there was some shortages in personal protective equipment. They made it really difficult for doctors and nurses to check in on their patients as often as they'd like to. And when they did, they had to wear a mask, so their face was covered. And so one of the things that we built was similar to senior living. We built an ability for doctors and nurses to drop in on their patients anytime they need. So they can just say, hey, Alexa, drop in on X patient. And they're able to then have a video chat with that patient without their mask on, from a remote distance, regardless of whether there's a shortage of PPE or not. And what we heard from residents or from patients in these cases is that the doctors said that they loved the ability of just wherever they are, in whichever area of the hospital they're in, they're able to connect to their patients and answer questions, make sure that they're checking in on their patients when they need to. But we also heard from patients that they loved the humanity of that. They loved that they were safe and that their doctor was treating them, but they loved to actually be able to see the face of the person that was providing care for them without increasing their exposure. Another thing that we built specifically for this segment was that we wanted to make sure that hospitals were able to provide some really important use cases for patients, like medication reminders, without ever compromising things like HIPAA. So HIPAA is super important in healthcare, and so we built something called a HIPAA eligible skill. And what this does is it's a special type of skill that you can read a lot more on our website. I'm happy to talk about it afterwards as well. But it's a special type of skill that's able to securely process things like medication reminders. I hope you are all much better at remembering things like taking your vitamins than me. I'm horrible at it. And so this is one that I personally resonate with a lot, is reminding yourself to be able to take medication reminders or take certain actions without knowing that as a patient, there could be a risk of a certain type of exposure. HIPAA eligible skills make sure that healthcare systems are able to support their patients in that way without compromising HIPAA and the regulations for that. And then finally in residential, this will be the fourth use case we go through before I'll show you what this looks like in a little bit more depth. One of the impressive stats in residential is that 4 out of 5 renters say that they want to live in a smart home, a smart apartment or a smart multifamily dwelling, but 3 out of 5 are willing to pay for it. So the majority of renters are actually willing to pay extra to have smart home amenities. And so if you own a building, you're looking at the number and you're saying, great, how can we make that happen? And unfortunately, it's really hard without Alexa Smart Properties. So if you're adding some devices, and let's say that you have a resident that moves in, you say, welcome to the apartment, here's a voice assistant. That voice assistant is going to leave with them if it's just a welcome gift. And so it's a operational cost that is a great thing for marketing and for getting somebody into your building, but it's also an expense that just leaves the building once they're gone. And so what we looked at is we looked at how can we make it easy to add smart home into these apartments, but how can we do it in a way that it becomes a fixture? It's almost like adding in a really nice fireplace, or it's a really nice shower head, something like this. It's just an amenity that stays with the building across different residents. And so we built tools that allowed developers, solution providers, and industry leaders to be able to create experiences where Alexa actually does become a fixture. And so what this looks like is that from a resident experience is when you are touring a property, you can walk into a unit that's in vacant mode. And in vacant mode, you're able to look at self-service tours. So you can be using an Alexa skill that a developer's created to provide a self-service tour. These have increased a lot in popularity during COVID. To be able to understand what are the amenities, control the different smart lights, and the building owner can even do remote energy maintenance to make sure that if a prospective resident walks in and they have the temperature set to a certain degree, and they've spiked it or dropped it quite a bit, you can make sure it's reset to something that you aren't incurring costs on an empty unit. And then when a resident moves in, they're able to, if they choose to, connect their personal account. So they could create an Amazon account on the spot or bring one with them, connect their Netflix account, connect their Spotify account, connect their own smart devices, and the device works just like at home. So if you have a device in your living room in occupied mode, if you choose to connect your account, it works just like at home. And then as soon as you move out, the resident or the apartment building, either one can initiate a disconnect. And at that point, the resident's account goes with them. So if they, for example, set up a bunch of integrations with all their different video providers, all that stays with them, with their account, to wherever they move next. And the device is wiped. And so it's ready, then it goes back into unoccupied mode, into vacant mode, so that the self-service tours can continue. And so it's a really easy way to have that apartment turnover. And customers have said that they love it. And we've been very grateful and humbled by customers telling us that about 4 out of 5 customers in the Wynn across the street, I don't know if any of you got the experience to stay there, it's a beautiful place, but about 4 out of 5 say that it's easy to use, they're happy with the service. If you didn't get a chance to stay in the Wynn, I wanted to show you what this experience looks like, not just tell you about it. So I'm gonna play about 3 different videos going through this end customer experience that highlights all of the cool things our developers, solution providers, and industry leaders have built for their end customers. So first, we're going to start with healthcare.
Alexa, play music. Alexa, call the cafeteria.
Okay.
Alexa, let my nurse know I need another blanket.
I understand you need a blanket. Your care team has been notified.
Hi, this is your nurse, Julie. I'll be right there with a blanket.
Your provider has written orders for you to go home. Your nurses will be giving you full discharge instructions shortly.
Now we're going to take a look at senior living. then finally, hospitality.
Alexa for Hospitality brings zero-touch guest experiences to your property.
Alexa, turn on the TV.
Okay.
Alexa, set the temperature to 73 degrees.
Alexa can switch between Spanish and English. Alexa understands your guests and responds to them in English or Spanish.
Alexa, turn on the lights.
Okay.
Alexa, ¿cuál es el pronóstico hoy?
Hoy, será soleado y 75 grados.
With Alexa for Hospitality, you can offer your guests visually appealing, customized experiences via Alexa devices with screens.
Alexa, order today's special.
Okay.
You can display property information and current specials, or enable room service ordering using touchscreen and voice commands.
Alexa, book a massage for 3 p.m. today.
Okay.
Properties can now choose from a wide variety of devices like Echo Dot, Echo Dot with Clock, Echo Plus, Echo Flex, and Echo Show.
It's great to have all these choices. Now we can replace bedside alarm clocks with an intelligent, voice-based Alexa device. Offer other types of devices that deliver immersive, voice-based experiences. And invest in devices at the level of our choice.
So I do want to complete talking about customer experience by talking about privacy. This is something our team spends a significant amount of time making sure is in place, because honestly, if you don't, you have a bad experience. We care both about privacy and making customers feel safe. Both of those things are incredibly important. And we've been very proud of what we've been able to build for customers. So the Echo Voice Assistant does have some basic things that we carry forward with this. So encryption, for example, is available by default. There's multiple layers of privacy protection, including there's a mute button on every single Echo device that if you press it, there's an electric disconnection. So if you mute a device and you say, Alexa, 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 Alexa physically cannot hear you. But on top of that, we took a look at saying, if Alexa's leaving the living room and going into all these different places, what else can we do on top of that, in addition to that, to add even more layers? And so a couple of these that I wanted to touch base on is what that looks like, starting with like a hotel as a context, but this applies to all of our different products in smart properties. First one is that the experiences are anonymous. And by that I mean that when you have an interaction, Alexa's not associating that with an identity, and this is intentional. If you walk into a hotel room, you say, hey Alexa, play music. Alexa does not need to ask you who you are to do that. Alexa can just play music from iHeartRadio while you're putting your bags down and getting settled. We don't need to know an identity with that. We don't need to ask you to go through a flow to associate that. It can just work out of the box. And that was an intentional decision to make sure that Alexa is just able to do exactly what you ask Alexa to do. In addition to that, their identities are not stored, and we never even save voice recordings, because we don't need to answer things like, hey, Alexa, what is the music? We don't need to make that choice, and so we do not save voice recordings. But we also touch base on a couple of things related to industry-specific segments. So HIPAA is an example of this, and as we see developers build increasing solutions in more and more industries, it's something that we constantly go through is, for customers in these different segments like healthcare, how can we make sure that we have best-in-class experiences, including on customer trust in these cases? So that's why we made decisions to build things like HIPAA-eligible skills, to make sure that we are compliant, but also making customers feel safe as we're delivering value for them. So now that we've talked about the end customer experience, I want to talk about that staff experience. I mentioned that we built Alexa Smart Properties to help end customers that you serve, but also to deliver obsessively great customer experiences for employees. And so an example of this, I'm going to start again with hospitality, would be a housekeeper inside of a hospitality segment. What they've told us is they like using voice because it helps them do what they were hired to do without getting distracted by having to do tasks that aren't actually part of their job description. So if, for example, like hospitality, a housekeeper walks into a room to clean and turn over the room after you check out of your room and they're turning it over for the next guest, and they see a leaking pipe or they see that there's a stain in the carpet and it's a maintenance request. Without voice, they have to actually make a decision. One is keep the room, defer that maintenance request, report that later, delaying its ability to get solved and delaying that room turnover, or they can stop what they're doing, leave their task, go look in the hallway to find their supervisor, tell their supervisor, can you radio this in, please? Supervisor then has to radio in to somebody at the front desk who then types a ticket for maintenance in a ticketing system to go and solve it. Instead, with voice, as they're walking into a room and cleaning, they don't have to actually stop that. They can just say, hey, Alexa, can you please tell maintenance that there's a leak? And that's it. Alexa can then send that message through a third-party integration that a solution provider or developer builds, that is an automatic ticket creation. And so they can keep doing what they enjoy doing, what they were hired to do, without having to be distracted by these tasks, and especially these physical operations where you have to walk around to get something done that isn't necessarily part of what they're asked to do that day. So as a business, it makes your employees more engaged, but it also helps you turn over rooms faster as well. And we've seen similar types of feedback inside of workspaces. So inside of physical workspaces, that operational piece is also there. We've heard from our customers that they appreciate the ability to disseminate information through voice, so that you don't have to be physically walking around finding people. So in a restaurant, this could be a daily stand-up where you're trying to communicate information to your staff, or if you have a new hire, they have to leave their task and walk over and go and ask somebody, can you talk to me about this? Can you tell me this piece of information? And if they can just ask from voice, as their hands are full and they're walking around, they can just ask a voice assistant, can you please answer this question for me? It reduces those search costs for them, so they don't have to be frustrated about walking around in that way. But inside of an office, there's less walking around. So if some of you have desk jobs, there's a lot less walking around. But what we've heard from employees in those cases is they appreciate the accessibility. So voice is one of the most accessible ways to access information and control your environment around you. And so we've heard from employees who may have low vision that they love that they can ask Alexa, start my meeting, or Alexa, please connect to Zoom. And they don't have to read anything, they don't have to fumble with different buttons. They can just use voice to make a request, and that can happen. And it empowers them to control their environment around them in a much more intuitive and friendly and accessible way. In Signs of Senior Living, I mentioned earlier that one of the most important goals is connecting seniors with their community. And unfortunately, that's an incredibly operational task that senior living communities have said has been very frustrating and costly for them. So if, for example, we mentioned book club, you want to tell seniors that book club exists or that the hours have changed. Either of those cases. What you do is you type it out, print out n number of pieces of paper, so let's say 200 pieces of paper, grab your roll of tape, and start walking around the building to go and tape up these different things on seniors' doors, and hope that they got that information. And that's a very time-intensive task that caregivers have said that's very frustrating because they didn't sign up to go and disseminate information. They signed up to care for people, and that's what they want to actually spend time doing. And so what we instead allow them to do through Alexa is just push that to the screen. They can push that information as a rotating card or as a pin card to any number of residents, the entire building, or they can push it to the specific residents who signed up for book club to get personalized information in a timely way, but not asking caregivers to leave what they're doing of actually taking care of people to go and print pieces of paper out. So it's an operational saving, but it's also something that we've seen employees really appreciate because they can spend more time doing what they signed up to do. And then in hospitals, this was especially true during COVID. One of the things that, there were kind of two different angles that we heard from doctors where they said they really appreciated the power of voice. The first one is that they appreciated the ability to be able to connect with their patients regardless of where they were physically located. So if they're in a different wing, they're able to respond to a patient very quickly. And they're able to do that regardless of physical constraints. So I mentioned earlier that personal protective equipment is very costly, especially in short supply of things like a pandemic. But the doctors actually are able to care for their patient, check on them on these very transactional things without spending time putting on PPE, taking it off to make sure that they are reducing the risk of exposure to pathogens. And we also heard that this was true for nurses who were able to just save time having to walk between wards without compromising patient safety. So they were actually able to spend more time with FaceTime with their patients because they didn't have these operational and physical constraints when they were able to talk to Alexa. And this has real numbers behind it. So during the pandemic, the average hospital that was using drop-in or calling for doctors and nurses to drop in on their patients saved $396 per patient per day, just by using drop-in calling, $396 per patient per day. And on top of that, We also heard from staff that they were saving up to 50 trips a day. So one nurse, for example, had 10 patients in the ICU. She checked on each one 5 different times a day. And she said that with Alexa, she was able to save 50 trips walking back and forth, again, putting on different types of PPE to protect herself and her patients and keep them safe without compromising FaceTime. And so I want to, just as we look through a couple of videos to explain or really show you what I'm talking about, I want to show you what efficiency looks like. One of my favorites is senior living, and I want to show you what staff efficiency using the power of voice looks like inside of that context.
We needed a way for residents to be able to communicate with technology. We brought Alexa into our community 4 years ago.
Alexa allows our staff to stay connected to our residents and our residents to stay connected in our communities and to their loved ones.
Alexa has been transformative. We have now distributed over 1,000 Echo devices across 9 of our communities.
Loneliness can be a major problem for seniors and ultimately makes them feel unworthy.
I'm able to create daily announcements and share the activities of the day.
The adoption is so high because it's so easy to use. I think Alexa is a key reason why some people choose to move into Eschaton.
So now that we've covered how voice works, we've also covered what do these look like for your end customers and for your employees. I want to talk about how you actually use it, how our product actually works. Because as I mentioned, Alexa Smart Properties exists so that you can set up, customize, manage, and continuously improve voice at scale across tens of thousands of devices. And it starts with picking your device. So Amazon is constantly inventing more and more different device types that have different capabilities, different form factors, and different price points, so you can pick what's actually best, because we believe that not the same form factor, there's no universal one that works in all contexts. We pick different form factors for a reason, and we want to give you the choice to be able to do that. So for example, inside of senior living, the Echo Show is really popular so that you can push information to customers, but many of our customers really appreciate devices that just allow transactional voice requests. For example, inside of a hallway where you just want to use it to control different lights around you. And then we provide a suite of APIs, and this is really one of the bulk pieces of our product, is that we provide management APIs that allows developers and solution providers to actually create these experiences. These are the APIs you can use to set your default music station, to push announcements and notifications to different devices. You're able to use this to control smart home devices, set them up, and then actually control them. And so it's both the setup piece, the customization piece, but also the ongoing management. You can do that at scale, tens of thousands of devices or one. And to be honest, pick your number in between that. They're designed really that we're able to work with incredibly large customers. I'll show you some in a minute. That you can really pick whatever scale your business needs without that operational burden of doing things one by one. And one of the coolest pieces of technology behind this is frustration-free setup. So these APIs are fairly simple. They have 3 steps. With frustration-free setup, it's a technology that as you pick your device and you pick the APIs that you're going to use to customize those, frustration-free setup is a way for you to do things at scale. So when you buy a device, you set up device number 1, that's step number 1, set it up, log into it, set it up with the experiences that you want, and then pick N number of devices that you want after that. Plug those in, make sure you're not adding fire safety issues based on how you're plugging things in, and then you wait. That's step number 3. As you wait, and device number 1 is going to set up all of the other devices, and it's going to cascade these settings like dynamic language switching that you saw earlier in a video, where you can tell Alexa to understand what language someone is speaking and dynamically respond in that. It'll cascade your music settings, it'll cascade video settings, et cetera. And then once you use this API suite, one of the most powerful things it does is it lets you create your organization, add properties inside of that, and then within your properties you can model rooms, add devices to rooms, and set up roles and permissions. And you can integrate all of this into your product. And so for example, if you have an application or you have your own console, you can use these APIs to add voice into yours. You don't have to use some separate console or separate app. You can natively integrate it so that you can keep all of your own integrations. You can set up roles and permissions where if you, for example, are building an experience for property A, you can set up a role where that property manager can only customize and see information from property A. Property B, they don't have any control over. Property manager from B doesn't have control over that. And so this gives you a huge, powerful ability to do customization so that you can fit things natively into your applications. And that's one of the things that's most important is that we've seen from customers, they've said that we want to be able to use, to control the end guest experience, we want to be able to use our own stuff. And that's why we've invested so much time in building out this large and growing suite of APIs, is we want to make sure that it's a set of tools that you can use to configure whatever experience you want to invent in any location you want to invent it in. And so if you're interested in building this out as a developer, as a solution provider, or as an industry leader, you'd be in good company. We've been very, very grateful to work with world-class companies across a variety of different segments. We've looked at hospitality today. I've shown you what we built with senior living communities, healthcare, but we're going into an additional growing number of places as we've gotten that demand from developers and leaders. We're responding to customers and excited about what the types of experiences that they want to invent. An example of this is Disney. We just announced an experience that we're going to be launching with them in 2022 inside of Walt Disney World Resorts. We're expanding to the UK and France with Accor. And we honestly believe that we're just getting started. We believe that we're really in the early days of voice. But I want to show you again what this looks like. I want to look at Ava, who's a healthcare solution provider, incredibly talented group of people that built out some very life-changing experiences for some customers using this set of APIs and integrating into their own applications and their own consoles. So I'm going to show you what this looks like.
Hello, I'm Michael from Ava, an Alexa AI solution provider for healthcare. We've leveraged APIs from Alexa for hospitality to power our platform, which includes a console that takes advantage of Alexa's new multimodal capabilities. In our case, Ava leverages Alexa to improve experience for hospital patients, senior residents, and their care teams. This same functionality could easily be applied to other fleet-managed environments like hotels, office buildings, apartment complexes, and various types of smart properties. As an enterprise property manager, you want to establish configuration profiles that are standardized across your fleet of devices. With that in mind, menu settings on devices deployed on Alexa Smart Property are disabled so users cannot change settings. Let's jump into the Ava console. I'll navigate down to an individual room in a property. As soon as you import a device into the room, end users will no longer be able to change settings on the device. Property staff can push messages to end users with pinned cards, which appear and then stay on the screen until dismissed by the user or at a scheduled time. I'll show you how to send a message that a user, for example a patient or a senior, should take their medication. Note that I could also set a dismissal time for the pinned cards to expire between 5 and 24 hours.
I'll cut that off. It's an incredible experience. I think it's available on our website, but I'm happy to go through it as well. They built a lot, so it's an extensively large video. But as Alexa continues to grow, we're honestly just excited about where it's going to go next. We've seen demand and interest, and we're starting to build things inside of stadiums, inside of dorms, inside of restaurants, in a growing number of locations. And we're honestly excited about how extensible this technology has been and is going to continue to be. And that's really what our team is invested in, is making sure that we're ready to go wherever developers want to take this, wherever solution providers and leaders want to take this, because we believe that voice is one of the most intuitive and accessible technologies. We've loved that that's exactly what customers have told us, is that they love how accessible this is, that it actually benefits their lives, employees' lives, and helps them be more efficient and more effective in whatever they're choosing to do. And so we think that we're just getting started and that we're in the early days. And that's why we're going to be continuing to invent new types of devices and new form factors to go in those new places, new tools to make it easier to go into those locations than ever. And so we're excited about this. We're excited that you might be interested in building with us. If you are, you're in great company, and we cannot wait to see what you invent.
Alexa.
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 What's the weather?
I want to see paintings from France.
Vacuum in front of the couch.
Make me a coffee.
Alexa, turn on the living room lights.
Take me to Italy.
Alexa, I'm sleepy.
Please tell my nurse I need a blanket.
Alexa, drop a beat.
What else do you have?
Alexa, order Domino's.
Download Xbox Game Pass games with Alexa.
Voice technology to improve experience for both patients and clinicians.
State-of-the-art vertical farming technology.
By getting to know you and your home, Roomba makes cleaning easier than ever before.
Alexa, start my car.
Stop. Au revoir.
So thank you for joining me today. This was only a 2:01 session, so if you have any questions, please join me at the front. Afterwards, I'll be hanging out here. But wanted to end early because I know many of you are catching flights as we wrap up reInvent. But thank you for joining me for this session. Thank you for joining us at reInvent. And honestly, we can't wait to see what you build. Enjoy and safe travels.